She was trained to save lives. A Red Army nurse who volunteered to fight the Nazis, who held dying soldiers in her arms, who knew the value of human life. And then she chose to become one of history's most prolific female executioners. Between 168 and 1,500 people killed by her hands, with a Maxim machine gun, one burst at a time. For 34 years after the war, she lived as a respected Soviet citizen, a hospital nurse, a war veteran invited to speak at schools about her heroic service, a wife, a mother of 2 daughters. Her husband was Jewish, a Red Army veteran. His entire family had been murdered by the Nazis and their collaborators. He never knew that his wife had been one of those collaborators. The Partisans had a name for her: Tonka the Machine Gun Girl. They hunted her for years, put a bounty on her head, swore to kill her for what she'd done. They never caught her. She hid in plain sight for 3 decades, until one mistake by her own brother brought everything crashing down. This is the story of Antonina Makarova, a story that forces us to ask the most uncomfortable question. How does a person trained to heal choose to kill? How does someone who volunteered to fight evil become evil themselves? And how does a monster hide among us for 34 years without anyone knowing? This is Red Archive, and this is one of the darkest transformations in human history.
Before we go deeper into this darkness, if stories like this matter to you, the hidden monsters, the moral collapses, the delayed justice, subscribe to Red Archive with notifications on, and leave a comment telling me, have you ever heard of Antonina Makarova before? What other hidden war criminals should we cover? Some of our best documentaries have come from your suggestions. Now, let's go back to the beginning to understand how a Soviet nurse became a Nazi executioner.
March 1st, 1920. A girl is born in Bryansk Oblast, Soviet Russia. Her name is Antonina. Antonina Makarovna Makarova. She grows up in the Soviet system, working-class family, patriotic education. She's taught to love the motherland, to hate fascism, to believe in Soviet values. A normal Soviet childhood. Nothing remarkable. Nothing that suggests what she will become. 1941. Germany invades the Soviet Union. Operation Barbarossa. Millions of Soviet citizens mobilize. Men go to fight. Women volunteer for support roles. Antonina is 21 years old. She volunteers as a frontline medical nurse. Think about this choice. She didn't have to go. Women weren't conscripted as nurses. She volunteered. She wanted to save Soviet lives, to fight the Nazi invasion, to serve her country. She was trained in medicine, learned to treat wounds, to comfort the dying, to preserve life at all costs. This was who Antonina Makarova was in 1941. A patriot, a healer, a volunteer. She serves on the front lines in the chaos of the early war, when the Soviet Union is losing, when millions of soldiers are dying. She sees the worst of humanity, the destruction, the death, the suffering. But she keeps working, keeps saving lives, keeps doing what she was trained to do. Until September 1941, when everything changes. September through October 1941. The Battle of Vyazma, one of the greatest military disasters in history. 600,000 Soviet soldiers encircled by German forces, trapped. 600,000, an entire army group, surrounded and cut off. Most will be killed or captured. The largest encirclement of the entire war. Antonina is among those caught in the encirclement, but she's not captured. In the chaos of retreat, she becomes separated from her unit, alone in Nazi-occupied territory, with no way to reach Soviet lines. For months, she wanders through the forests of occupied Russia, a fugitive, terrified, starving. Every day could be her last. German patrols everywhere, collaborators who would turn her in, death around every corner. By summer 1942, she's been running for almost a year. The physical toll is devastating. Hunger, cold, exhaustion. The psychological toll is worse. Constant fear, isolation, no end in sight. She reaches a breaking point, and at that breaking point, she makes a choice that will define the rest of her life, a choice that will cost over 1,000 people their lives.
Summer 1942. Antonina is in the Bryansk Oblast region, near a place called Lokot. She has two options. Option 1, join the Soviet Partisans. Thousands of Soviet citizens are fighting the Nazi occupation from the forests, guerrilla warfare, sabotage, resistance. It's hard, dangerous, you might die, but it's the path of resistance, the path of fighting back. Option 2, collaboration. The Lokot region is under Nazi occupation, but it's run by Russian collaborators, a puppet state called the Lokot Autonomy. If she goes there, she'll have food, shelter, safety from the forest. She won't be running anymore. She won't be starving. She'll have a warm place under the sun. But she'll be serving the enemy. The same Nazis she volunteered to fight against. The same fascists who killed her comrades. Antonina makes her choice. She doesn't join the Partisans. She walks into Nazi-occupied Lokot voluntarily and offers herself to the enemy. This is the moment when a Soviet nurse, a volunteer who wanted to save lives, chooses collaboration over resistance, comfort over principle, survival over honor. She was not forced. She was not captured. She made a choice, and that choice will lead her to become one of history's worst female murderers. What was the Lokot Autonomy? Established in October 1941, a Nazi puppet state in occupied Soviet territory, run by Russian collaborators. Its leader was Bronislav Kaminsky, a Russian who chose to serve the Germans, who built an army of collaborators called Rona, the Russian National Liberation Army, 2,000 to 3,000 troops fighting against Soviet partisans. Summer 1942. Antonina arrives in Lokot. She's desperate, broken by months in the forest, looking for any way to survive. Her first job is prostitution. She works as a sex worker for German soldiers, paid in food, money, shelter. She contracts venereal diseases. This lasts for weeks, possibly months. Then someone notices her. A commander in the collaborationist forces. He sees something in her. Maybe her desperation. Maybe her willingness to do anything. Maybe something darker. He makes her an offer. A new job, better pay, a room, meals, regular income.
The job? Executioner. She will operate a Maxim machine gun and kill whoever the Nazis want dead. The pay? 30 Reichsmarks per person executed. The execution system at Lokot is industrial. A farm has been converted into a prison. It holds approximately 27 prisoners at a time. Executions happen nearly every day or every few days. Groups of prisoners led to a pit 500 meters away, and Antonina is positioned at the machine gun. The procedure is methodical. Prisoners are removed from barracks in chains, led to the execution site, ordered to stand facing a pit or ravine. Antonina is at her position. A Maxim M1910 machine gun mounted on a mobile platform. A German officer gives the command, "Fire!" She opens fire, keeps firing, until all prisoners fall into the pit. Then she walks among the bodies with a pistol, administers the coup de grâce to any survivors, a single shot to the head. Then she loots the bodies, takes their clothing, shoes, valuables, anything of worth. The first time is difficult for her. She can't do it sober. Before her first execution, she drinks an entire bottle of vodka.
But after that first day, something changes. She becomes numb, professional, efficient. The people in front of her gun stop being people. They become abstractions, numbers, targets. We're deep into the transformation now, from nurse to executioner. The mechanics of mass murder. Before we continue, leave a comment telling me what disturbs you most about this story so far. The voluntary collaboration, the industrial killing, the psychological transformation. Your engagement shapes how I tell these stories. Now, let's talk about who she was killing. The victims of Antonina Makarova were not soldiers in combat. They were prisoners, bound, helpless, facing a machine gun. Soviet partisan prisoners, captured resistance fighters, suspected partisans, civilians accused without evidence, communist officials, local Soviet administrators, Jewish civilians, part of the Nazi genocide, Red Army prisoners of war, captured soldiers, families of partisans punished for their relatives' resistance, women, children, the elderly, the disabled. No exceptions, no mercy. Some children survived. Bullets missed them. They fell into the pit, played dead among the bodies. Later, they were rescued by locals who came to bury the dead. These children grew up knowing about Tonka the Machine Gun Girl. They became part of the partisan legend. The reason she was hunted, living witnesses to her crimes. During her interrogation in 1978, Antonina described her victims. "I didn't know those I shot. They didn't know me, so I felt no shame about them. All those sentenced to death were the same to me, only their quantity changed." The condemned were placed in a line facing the pit. Someone would roll my machine gun into place. At command from the chief, I'd get to my knees and shoot until they lay dead in the pit. No remorse, no guilt, no recognition that these were human beings, just numbers. How many people did she kill? The official conviction says 168. Those are the victims who could be identified by name, but the estimates are much higher. Approximately 20,000 bodies were discovered in mass graves around Lokot after the war. If Antonina worked as executioner for 18 months, and executions happened almost daily, with groups of around 27 at a time, the math suggests 1,500 victims, maybe more. She was paid for each killing, 30 Reichsmarks per person executed. 30 Reichsmarks. About $12 at the time. That was the value she placed on a human life. $12. to pull a trigger and end someone's existence. Word spreads among the Soviet partisans. There's a woman at Lokot who operates the machine gun, who executes their comrades, who shows no mercy. They give her a name, Tonka the Machine Gun Girl. Tonka is a diminutive of Antonina, a nickname, made infamous. The partisans declare her a priority target. They want her dead. They offer rewards for information. They send agents to find her. But Lokot is protected. German forces and Rona collaborators guard it. The partisans can't reach her. She lives among the collaborators, protected by the very evil she serves. How did she live with what she was doing? The psychological evidence suggests complete compartmentalization.
Victims were abstractions. I didn't know them, they didn't know me. The job was impersonal, just work like any work. Responsibility was external. Circumstances forced me. Emotion was suppressed. Why feel shame for strangers? Soviet psychiatrists later examined her, found her mentally competent, no psychosis, no insanity. She was responsible for her actions. She just didn't care. By 1943 and 44, the war is turning. The Red Army is advancing, pushing the Germans back, liberating occupied territory. The Lokot autonomy is collapsing. The collaborators know what's coming. Soviet justice, which means death. Antonina escapes westward with the retreating German forces. She ends up in Königsberg, East Prussia, the last holdout of Nazi Germany in the east. When Soviet forces capture Königsberg in April 1945, she's there, but she has a plan. In the chaos of post-war Königsberg, she transforms herself. She applies for work as a nurse, a legitimate role she can fill. Her pre-war training makes this credible. A hospital hires her, and she meets Victor Ginsburg,
a Jewish Red Army veteran.
They fall in love. They marry. She takes his name. Antonina Makarova becomes Antonina Ginsburg. Victor Ginsburg's entire family was murdered by the Nazis and their collaborators. People exactly like Antonina. He married one of them and never knew. The respectable life. They settle in Lepel, a post-war Soviet town. Antonina lives a respectable life. She works as a hospital nurse, continuing to save lives. She's recognized as a war veteran, receives Soviet benefits and pension. She's invited to speak at schools about her heroic war service. She tells children about fighting the Nazis while hiding that she served them. They have 2 daughters, born in 1947 and the early 1950s. A normal Soviet family, respected in their community. No one suspects anything. For 31 years, she lives this double life. The respected nurse by day, the hidden executioner in her past. The compartmentalization continues, as if those 18 months in Lokot happened to someone else. 1976, Antonina's brother applies for an exit visa. He wants to leave the Soviet Union, emigrate to the West. Soviet law requires listing all family members on the application. He writes down his sister's name, Antonina Makarova, her birth name, the name she hasn't used in 30 years. The KGB monitors all exit visa applications, looking for suspicious names. Someone recognizes it. Antonina Makarova, from the old Lokot investigation files. Tonka the Machine Gun Girl, still wanted for war crimes. The KGB begins a careful investigation. They understand the danger of false accusation. An innocent woman with the same name could be destroyed.
They spend an entire year verifying. They find former Rona collaborators in the Gulag, men who knew Tonka personally. They arrange an identification. 1977. The KGB has a plan. They take 2 former Rona collaborators from prison, disguise them as welfare workers, transport them to Lepel. Their mission? Observe and identify if the woman living there is Tonka. Antonina is invited to the local welfare office for pension matters, a routine appointment. She walks in. The hidden witnesses are watching. They recognize her immediately. Yes, this is Tonka the Machine Gun girl. No doubt. After 34 years, they still know her face. July 1978. KGB officers arrive at her home in Lepel. 34 years of hiding end in a single moment. According to the KGB officer who arrested her, she showed no fear, no excitement, no tears. Until the very last minute, she maintained her composure as if she had been waiting for this day. The interrogation sessions last months. Her demeanor is calm, collected, minimal emotion. She does not deny her crimes, not even on the first interrogation. She admits to the executions at Lokot, provides detailed descriptions, names accomplices and commanders, explains her thinking, but shows no remorse, no emotional breakdown, no guilt. She offers justifications. It was just a job. I had no choice. Circumstances forced me. The victims meant nothing to me. They were strangers. But she did have a choice. She voluntarily walked into Lokot. She voluntarily accepted the executioner role. She voluntarily pulled the trigger 1,500 times. September through November 1978. The trial is held in Bryansk, the city near where so many of her victims came from. The charges? Treason, mass murder, crimes against humanity. The evidence is overwhelming. Her detailed confessions, witness testimony, German records, the identification of 168 victims by name, mass graves containing 20,000 bodies. The verdict is inevitable. Guilty. The sentence, death by firing squad, November 8, 1978. She appeals. All petitions are rejected. August 11th, 1979, 6 o'clock in the morning, Bryansk Prison Execution Facility. Antonina Makarova, also known as Antonina Ginsburg, also known as Tonka the Machine Gun Girl, faces a firing squad. She is 58 or 59 years old. The first woman executed for World War II war crimes in post-Stalin Soviet Union. One of only 3 women ever executed for such crimes after Stalin. The only female executioner known to be executed for these crimes. Her husband, Victor, falls into deep depression. The man whose family was murdered by the Nazis discovered his wife was one of their collaborators. Her daughters' lives are destroyed. The stigma follows them forever. No one claimed her body. If you watched this entire documentary, thank you. The story of Antonina Makarova forces us to confront uncomfortable truths, that ordinary people can choose evil, that survival doesn't excuse atrocity, that monsters can hide among us for decades, that the line between healer and killer is thinner than we want to believe. She was trained to save lives. She chose to end them. Then she went back to saving them, as if nothing had happened. Subscribe to Red Archive
and hit the notification bell. Leave a like if this documentary challenged how you think about human nature. And in the comments, tell me, what does this story make you feel? How do we prevent ordinary people from making the choices she made? Your thoughts shape this entire series. Until next time, stay safe, stay vigilant, and remember, the capacity for evil lives in all of us. The question is whether we choose to act on it. Antonina Makarova made her choice,
and 1,500 people paid the price.